Hello friends. Welcome back to the channel. If this video has found you, then do not rush into listening. Just stay here for a moment. A new year often arrives quietly. There is no sound when it begins. No dramatic shift. No signal that says everything will now be different. And yet, something inside you feels slightly alert, slightly hopeful, slightly aware that time has moved forward again. That feeling is not excitement. It is awareness. And awareness is where real change actually starts. Before we go further, let me say this once calmly. If you are someone who does not enjoy loud motivation, who does not believe in overnight transformation, and who wants real inner change that actually lasts beyond January, then this channel is for you. Like the video and subscribe the channel, not as a favor, but as a quiet decision that you are choosing a different direction this time. Now let us continue without rushing. Every new year creates pressure. Pressure to improve. Pressure to fix everything. Pressure to finally become the person you think you should already be. And while the world celebrates fresh starts, many people sit silently with a strange feeling they cannot explain. A mix of hope and exhaustion. A desire to move forward, combined with fear that nothing will really change. If that sounds familiar, it does not mean you are negative. It means you are honest. Most people pretend they are excited. Very few people admit they are tired. This video is not here to push you. It is here to stabilize you. Because a stable mind goes further than a motivated one. At the beginning of every year, people talk about goals. But almost nobody talks about weight. The emotional weight people carry from the previous year. The unfinished conversations. The plans that quietly failed. The promises made with confidence and broken in silence. You cannot move freely into a new year while still carrying the emotional luggage of the old one. Not because you are weak, but because the mind does not forget unresolved experiences. Most people do not need a new routine. They need closure. Not dramatic closure. Internal closure. The kind where you stop fighting the past and start understanding it. Last year did not fail because you were lazy. It failed because life happened faster than your emotional capacity to process it. Nobody teaches you how to reset mentally. They only teach you how to restart externally. New planner. New schedule. New goals. But the same internal voice. And that voice quietly decides the outcome of your year. If you're being honest with yourself, you already know this. You have started before. You have felt motivated before. You have promised yourself change before. What broke was not discipline. What broke was self-trust. When you promise yourself something too many times and do not follow through, the mind stops believing you. So now, even when motivation comes, it feels shallow, temporary, unreliable. This is why pushing yourself harder has never worked. You are not broken. Your relationship with yourself is. A real fresh start does not feel exciting. It feels quiet. It feels like finally telling yourself the truth without punishing yourself for it. The truth might be that you avoided discomfort. The truth might be that you chased comfort too often. The truth might be that you cared too much about outcomes and not enough about process. But truth is not meant to shame you. Truth is meant to free you from repetition. Most people repeat years, not because time is repeating, but because their identity is. They say, "This year I will work harder," while still seeing themselves as inconsistent. They say, "This year I will be confident," while still seeing themselves as someone who doubts. They say, "This year I will change," while still holding the same internal image of who they are. You cannot outwork an identity you have not questioned. This year is not asking you to do more. It is asking you to be more honest. Honest about what drains you. Honest about what you avoid. Honest about what you keep postponing because it scares you. And most importantly, honest about what kind of life you are quietly settling for. There is a reason slow, boring change works. Because it rebuilds trust. Every time you show up when you said you would, even in a small way, your mind takes note. Not emotionally, Neurologically, trust is not a feeling. It is a pattern, and patterns are built through repetition, not intensity. People who truly transform do not feel motivated every day. They feel committed, even when motivation disappears. They stop negotiating with their future. They stop asking, "Do I feel like it today?" and start asking, "Is this the kind of person I am becoming?" That question changes behavior quietly, but permanently. Right now, you do not need a powerful decision. You need a stable one. One that you can keep even on days when nothing feels inspiring. Because the days that feel ordinary are the days that decide your life. Many people believe they are behind in life. Behind their friends. Behind their age. Behind expectations. But life does not move in straight lines. It moves in seasons. And sometimes, what looks like delay is actually preparation you did not recognize at the time. You are not late. You are early for the version of yourself you have not yet met. And here is something most people never hear. You are allowed to move slowly this year. Slow enough to think. Slow enough to feel. Slow enough to choose intentionally. Speed without direction only creates exhaustion. Direction without speed still creates progress. The inner rebuild. At some point in your life, you learn to associate change with force. Force yourself to wake up early. Force yourself to stay motivated. Force yourself to be disciplined. Force yourself to improve. And maybe it worked for a few days. Maybe even a few weeks. But eventually, something inside you pushed back. Not because you are weak, but because force is not sustainable when it is not aligned with identity. The mind resists what it does not believe belongs to it. That is why most people experience change as a battle with themselves. This year is not about winning that battle. It is about ending the war. Real discipline does not feel aggressive. It feels settled. It feels like a quiet agreement you make with yourself, not a daily argument. When discipline is forced, it drains you. When discipline is chosen, it stabilizes you. And stability is what allows consistency to exist without constant emotional effort. Most people think discipline means doing difficult things. But discipline actually begins with removing unnecessary difficulty. Doing fewer things, but doing them properly. Choosing routines that fit your life, not fantasies you copied from someone else. Stopping the habit of setting standards you cannot maintain. A system you can follow imperfectly is more powerful than a system you abandon perfectly. You do not need a dramatic morning routine. You need a repeatable one. You do not need extreme productivity. You need clarity about what actually matters. And clarity comes from silence. One of the most underrated skills you can develop this year is the ability to sit with yourself without distraction, without scrolling, without noise, without stimulation. Because the moment things become quiet, the truth starts to surface. And most people avoid silence not because it is boring, but because it is revealing. Silence shows you what you have been running from. If you pay attention, you will notice something interesting. Your habits are not random. They are emotional responses. Procrastination is often fear in disguise. Overworking is often avoidance disguised as ambition. Constant distraction is often discomfort trying to escape awareness. This year, instead of judging your habits, try understanding them. Judgment creates resistance. Understanding creates change. Many people believe confidence comes from achievement. But confidence actually comes from self-respect. And self-respect is built when your actions align with your values, even in small ways. Every time you do what you said you would do, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. Every time you break a promise to yourself, even a small one, that belief weakens. This is why starting small is not a strategy for beginners. It is a strategy for long-term transformation. If you want to rebuild your life this year, start by rebuilding your word to yourself. Say less. Commit less. Deliver more. Let your actions become quiet proof instead of loud promises. At some point, you will notice a shift. Not externally. Internally. You will stop overthinking decisions. You will stop waiting for motivation. You will stop seeking permission to take your own life seriously. Not because everything is perfect, but because you trust yourself enough to move forward without constant reassurance. This is where boredom becomes important. Boredom is not the enemy of growth. Boredom is the environment where growth becomes possible. When things are boring, you stop chasing novelty. You stop chasing excitement. You stop chasing validation. And you start building depth. Depth in skill. Depth in character. Depth in discipline. Most people quit during boredom. They confuse lack of excitement with lack of progress. But progress rarely feels exciting while it is happening. It feels repetitive. It feels uneventful. It feels slow. And that is exactly why it works. This year, your life does not need to look impressive. It needs to feel aligned. Aligned with who you are becoming, not who you are pretending to be. There is no reward for suffering unnecessarily. There is no medal for burnout. Growth that destroys your peace is not growth. It is avoidance disguised as ambition. Pay attention to what drains you this year. Not just physically, emotionally, people, environments, conversations, expectations. You are allowed to outgrow spaces that once felt familiar. Growth does not always look like addition. Sometimes it looks like subtraction. You will not always feel strong this year. Some days you will feel uncertain. Some days you will feel slow. Some days you will question whether any of this is working. Those days are not signs of failure. They are signs that you are doing something unfamiliar. And unfamiliar always feels uncomfortable before it feels normal. One of the biggest shifts you can make this year is learning to respond instead of react. Reacting is automatic. Responding is intentional. Reacting keeps you in patterns. Responding creates change. The space between stimulus and response is where your future is decided. And that space grows when you slow down. This year, stop asking yourself, how do I fix my life? Start asking, what am I practicing every day? Because what you practice becomes your life, whether you intend it to or not. If you feel like you are starting over again, remember this. Starting over with awareness is not failure. It is upgrade. You are not repeating the same cycle. You are breaking it slowly from the inside. Time, patience, and the lonely middle. One of the hardest things to accept about real change is how long it takes. Not because change itself is complicated, but because the mind is impatient while life is not. We live in a world that celebrates fast results, instant rewards, and visible progress. But personal transformation does not announce itself quickly. It works quietly, often invisibly, especially in the beginning. And this is where most people quit. Not at the start, not at the idea, but in the middle. The middle is uncomfortable. The excitement is gone. The results are not visible yet. The effort feels real, but the reward feels distant. You wake up, do what you said you would do, and nothing dramatic happens. No applause. No sudden breakthrough. No clear confirmation that you are on the right path. Just repetition. And repetition is boring to a mind that wants certainty. This is the phase where doubt becomes loud. You start questioning your decisions. You start comparing yourself to others. You start wondering if you chose the wrong path, the wrong time, or the wrong version of yourself to believe in. This doubt is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is changing. The old version of you is losing control, and it resists quietly. Growth isolates you before it strengthens you. When you stop living reactively, some people will not understand you. When you stop chasing validation, some connections will feel distant. When you stop explaining yourself, silence will grow around you. This loneliness is not punishment. It is space. Space to hear your own thoughts again. Space to understand what you actually want, not what you were conditioned to want. Space to build something internally before it becomes visible externally. Many people run back to noise during this phase. They return to distractions. They return to old habits. They return to familiar chaos. Not because it was better, but because it was familiar. The mind often chooses familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. This year, you are learning to stay. Staying does not mean forcing yourself. It means not abandoning yourself when things feel slow. It means understanding that discomfort does not always mean danger. Sometimes it means progress. Time is not working against you. Time is working with you, even when it does not feel like it. Every day you repeat a behavior, you are not just doing an action. You are reinforcing a belief. A belief that says, "This is who I am now." Identity is not formed by one big decision. It is formed by hundreds of quiet ones. At some point, you will notice that you are no longer fighting yourself as much. You still feel resistance, but it is softer. You still feel fear, but it does not stop you. You still feel uncertainty, but it does not paralyze you. This is not confidence. This is stability. And stability is more powerful than confidence because it does not disappear when emotions change. There will be days this year when you feel like nothing is happening. Those days are dangerous only if you let them convince you to stop. Because most breakthroughs are invisible until they suddenly appear obvious. Roots grow underground long before anything shows above the surface. And the deeper the roots, the stronger the structure. If you stay consistent long enough, something unexpected happens. Your standards change. You stop tolerating behavior from yourself that once felt normal. You stop settling for effort that once felt acceptable. You stop negotiating with excuses that once sounded reasonable. Not because someone told you to change, but because you outgrew them. This is when people around you start saying things like, "You have changed. You seem different. You are quieter these days." They will not see the months of repetition. They will not see the internal work. They will not see the boredom, the doubt, the patience. They will only see the result. And that is fine. Transformation does not require witnesses. One of the most difficult lessons this year will teach you is patience without reassurance. Doing the right things without knowing when the reward will come. Trusting the process without constant proof. This is not blind faith. This is earned trust in yourself. Built through showing up when quitting would have been easier. If you feel tired sometimes, do not panic. Rest is not quitting. Rest is maintenance. Burnout does not create strong people. Balance does. This year, you are learning to move forward without destroying yourself. That alone is growth. You are not meant to rush this process. You are meant to live it, to feel it, to slowly realize that the person you used to be is no longer in control. Not because you fought them, but because you replaced them with something steadier. And one day, without planning it, without announcing it, without making it a big moment, you will realize something quietly. You trust yourself again. That is when everything else starts to fall into place. When change becomes who you are. Over time, something subtle begins to happen. You stop measuring your life in dramatic moments. You stop waiting for big breakthroughs. You stop asking yourself whether you are doing enough. Not because you achieved everything, but because your inner state has changed. You no longer feel desperate for proof. You no longer need constant reassurance that you are on the right path. You begin to understand that showing up consistently is already evidence. At this stage, growth feels quieter than ever. You wake up and move through your day with less internal resistance. Decisions feel simpler, not because life is simple, but because you are clearer. You react less emotionally. You recover faster when things do not go your way. This is when change stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like alignment. You are no longer pushing yourself forward. You are allowing yourself to move forward. People often think transformation means becoming louder, more confident, more expressive. But real transformation often does the opposite. It makes you calmer, more grounded, less reactive, less interested in proving anything. You begin to realize that peace is not something you earn at the end of success. Peace is something you build while you are still becoming. By now, You may notice that your relationship with time has changed. You are less rushed, less impatient, less anxious about being late in life. You understand that rushing was never about ambition. It was about fear. Fear of falling behind. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being forgotten. As that fear loosens its grip, time stops feeling like an enemy. It becomes a partner. You also begin to detach from outcomes. Not because outcomes do not matter, but because they no longer control your emotional state. You work because you respect the process. You improve because growth feels natural. You stay disciplined because it reflects who you are, not because you are chasing validation. This is where consistency becomes effortless. Not easy, but natural. One of the most important shifts happens quietly here. You stop romanticizing the past. You stop replaying old versions of yourself. Old mistakes. Old regrets. Old missed opportunities. Not because they disappeared, but because they no longer define you. You do not erase your past. You integrate it, and integration creates strength. You also stop fearing the future as much, not because you know exactly how things will turn out, but because you trust the person who will face it. That trust did not come from motivation. It came from repetition, from keeping small promises, from showing up on ordinary days, from staying when quitting felt tempting. At some point, people will say you have changed. They may not always mean it positively. Some will miss the old you because the old you was more predictable, more available, more reactive. But you are not here to remain familiar. You are here to grow, and growth changes dynamics. That is not something to apologize for. This is where you begin to live differently. You choose your words more carefully. You choose your energy more intentionally. You choose your commitments more selectively. Not because you became rigid, but because you learned the cost of being careless with yourself. This year did not transform you through one big moment. It transformed you through hundreds of quiet decisions. To stay consistent, to slow down, to be honest, to stop abandoning yourself. That is how real change happens. Not loudly, but permanently. And now, as this year unfolds, you are not standing at the beginning anymore. You are walking, not rushing, not forcing, not proving, just walking forward with clarity. And that is enough. If there is one thing to remember from this entire journey, let it be this. You do not need to become someone new to change your life. You need to become someone you can trust, someone who shows up, someone who stays consistent, someone who moves forward, even when progress feels invisible. That is how this year becomes different. Not through motivation, but through alignment. If this video stayed with you, if it slowed your thoughts, if it helped you feel grounded rather than rushed, then you can support this channel by liking the video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who needs a quiet, fresh start. You can also comment below, not what you want to achieve this year, but who you are choosing to become. Thank you for staying till the end. Thank you for giving yourself this time. And most importantly, thank you for not giving up on your own growth. This year is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real.